Yes, Ms. Dietrich, can I start with you very quickly? Does the state have any legal authority to access the school trust lands that are within this wilderness area? Ms. Dietrich?
Yes.
So you can access these,
Yes.
but they are still surrounded by a wilderness area.
Yes.
So it looks like, and obviously the Forest Service doesn't have a fiduciary responsibility to fund education in the state of
You're
Minnesota. I'm happy that we found out of an earmark that's apparently consistently in the budget. I think now that the Budget Committee knows about it, you may not count on that money in the future. But I do want to let you know, once you have state trust lands, those are not part of the PILT formula. Don't worry about it. PILT only pays a fraction of even the lowest property tax rate. So when we have state trust lands, we get far more money than we ever actually come begging to the federal government in exchange for some kind of PILT. We do better for our kids. I am happy to see, as a state that has so much land in the forest and BLM, and it screws over our education funding year after year and our kids, I'm happy to see that some other state has the equal problem and pain coming from the federal government owning something. So, Ms. Weldon, let me ask you a couple of questions. The fact that we have school trust land within a boundary that's all wilderness means somebody who created this wilderness screwed up big time in the first place, right? And it also means that if you want to try to acquire this inholding within this wilderness area, is there a funding stream that would actually pay for that?
Thank you for your question. There are different funding streams that could be available. The instance that we're looking to use here as an opportunity is the Land and Water Conservation Fund to make that exchange. Other opportunities could
So how long do you think it would take you to acquire enough money just to buy the state out and buy that land?
Well, as you're aware, the general process is to get an exchange approved and then move that into the process of competing.
How long do you think it would get you to get the kind of money just to buy this property out?
If it were submitted in our next appropriations bill for consideration, it could be anywhere from 1 to several years. Many times an initial allocation will be made and then subsequently.
If it was requested and if we actually paid for it in a budget year that we're talking about for the foreseeable future. So the only way you're actually going to get that in holding is to do some kind of exchange. There is no other logical way of ever accomplishing that factor. Now, you said in your testimony that it's going to take you 2 years to do that. Actually, you asked, the Forest Service actually wanted 4 years. Ms. Weldon, go back to your people and tell you that is ridiculous. You can do the survey, you can do it. If you had the response, if you can't do that within 1 year, those people who are working in your department down there a couple of blocks from here don't deserve to be working there. It's ridiculous that you expect to have 2 to 4 years simply to do a simple exchange like this. That's one of the frustrations that states always have dealing with the federal government, is you want to drag your feet and slow walk everything. Now, I'm sorry I'm yelling at you because you're the representative of the Forest Service, but someone down there has got to realize you can actually work occasionally and you can get something done. And the idea of taking 4 years to do this kind of exchange is just ridiculous. The idea of asking for 4 years is ridiculous. It should not be that way. I know it is that way, but it should never have to be that way. We can do better than that, and the Forest Service needs to do better than that. With that, actually the Forest Service, I'm pleased that you're not trying to oppose this, but you should be leading the charge to make this. It would solve your problem, and it would solve the students and the kids in Minnesota's problem at the same time. So yeah, there are some things that still have to work with this, specifically identifying the property that has to be there, but this cannot, this can happen. It can happen quickly. This is in the best interest of Minnesota, and it's actually in the best interest of the Forest Service there in Minnesota as well. Do it, and do it quickly. And we can do this in a reasonable amount of time, and 1 year is truly a reasonable amount of time. I yield back. Mr. Canoe, questions? I want to thank the panel for being here. I want to thank you for coming from Minnesota to address. I do actually have one last question. I'm sorry. Does the state, Ms. Kelly here, does the state of Minnesota equalize their school funding formulas? I.e., you take all the money into the state and then you distribute it out throughout the state?
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
So if you have specialized streams of funding coming in, is that still part of the equalization formula? Some states do, some states don't.
It is not, but our equalization formula hasn't been updated in about 7 years, so it's time to bring in those other funds that have been added over those 7 years.
Thank you. That helps me. I appreciate all of you being here. Thank you. We'll ask you if you take your seats again and invite